I will.
Okay.
Webinar is now streaming live.
We are now streaming live. And I'm just going to do a few more little bits of button pushing and getting everything set up on the pages as we do on our normal kind of little bits and pieces here.
No worries.
I have to check the pages, make sure we are all going. This is always the fun bit. What's that?
Just talking us through your mind.
Yeah.
Also gives me more
opportunity
to drink this coffee, which is good.
Yeah, just to talk. I'm just going to try to share onto my page, which I'll do right now. Share over to my page. Okay, so hi everybody. Welcome to the What's on an Elephant Castle Facebook page. My name is Nick from Retribe, and over in Toronto is Melissa. Hi Melissa, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Good, and then joining us is Michael Dantzie, who is a stay-at-home father and runs his own design business. Michael, I'm so excited about you being able to join us today because I'd like to tell everybody about how we met. But first of all, how are you today?
Yeah, man, I'm cool, man. I'm cool. I'm excited.
Good. So we met a few months ago now at Hood Lessons, which was this amazing event that our buddies Andrew and Laith organized. And I'm going to say that you were one of the first guys to come up and reach out his hand to me and say hello. And you had this beautiful energy about you. So I'm so grateful that you can come here and we can talk about what's been happening in our lives and stuff. But can you kind of give a brief explanation of who you are and what you do for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, how do I define? It's really difficult because I'm not someone who's got any academics behind me. So, you know, when you got no accolades, like, well, how do you define yourself? Because, you know, so I'm a father. I'm proud to be a father of 3 children. It took me a while to be proud to say that I home educated them for a while. And that's a different discussion, you know, as men, you know, feeling what do you feel gives you purpose and value instead of, you know, and the traditional stereotype for hundreds of years has been money. We bring in the bread, you know, but the way life had it for me was just different, a different thing that's came into my life where I stayed at home and my wife for the first 10 years was working full time. So I always introduced myself like that first. And what else? Yeah, I run my own business from home, digital marketing consultant. And yeah, that's it really. Brief, to be honest.
It's brief, but it's packed with so much stuff that I'm sure I know Melissa has got a lot of questions to ask you. But I'll just start off with just kind of a general thing about the last few months. I know we've been in contact over Facebook and we've chatted, but there's been an awful lot that's been going on to this world over the last few months. How have you been dealing with the COVID and all the other issues, and what kind of tools have you learned along the way that have been able to help you cope through these last few months?
Family. I've got a big family, but more so my brother. Me and my brother are very, 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 very close. It's funny that I didn't fully, I'm appreciating more and more how close we are based upon people's reaction to our relationship. So I go church and we haven't been able to go, obviously, because of COVID and whatnot. And I remember one time my brother spoke, he did a presentation, and the first comment people made when I came back, because I couldn't be there that day because I think I was speaking somewhere else. They were like, you and your brother are really close. I was like, that's a really strange reaction to his message. And they said, yeah, you are really close, because he spoke about myself and gave certain stories and testimonies. And everyone who starts to get to know us, that's one of the comments that they make. You lot are really, really close. And that's like to think, man, what I have is not normal. It's rare, I should say. It's rare. So to answer your question, we speak nearly every day, you know, and if we don't speak, you know, I have a little endearing term. I call him Big Head. And he doesn't answer the phone because he's kind of like, I'm fire and he's silk in terms of personalities. You know, he thinks, he will think twice before making an action. Me, I'm like, let's just go. I'm very, very dynamic and passionate. I've been like that since I was young. So one of the things is me just talking to him. I've got my wife, I've got a community around me, friends. Like I said, I go to church, and we've got me personally, we've got a really good set of people I can just bounce off. And just that alone keeps your mind off the madness that was going on outside. You know, particularly now we see we're in unprecedented times with the Black Lives Matter protests in over 60 countries around the world. That's bringing up a whole lot of different emotions. So I have to also think about my children. So I have to strike that balance where there's a lot of craziness outside these four walls. So one of the things we did, which I did, was started a YouTube channel, a family one called Dantzie Flicks, where it's literally me, my wife, and my children. And before the Black Lives Matter protests, we were doing those videos a lot, like, you know, like regular, and they're just funny. There's no talking, so anybody can understand, which was by design. And then this happened. And because that's very close to my experience in terms of racism and whatnot, I've been so absorbed. But then I've been starting to think, man, your children, though, you have to have a balance. Yeah, you want to fight this monster, but they're your first duty. What kind of world are you trying to paint for them in the home? Yeah, you might want to fight this battle across the water and, you know, in England and statues and all this, but what about them? So for me, I'm moving away from kind of speaking on that too much to try and say, right, let's get back on those videos. Let's do those funny videos. Let me take care of my children. Let's do what we were doing before, because in a way, I still feel that is part of a solution. People may not see it straight away, but I think it's still part of a solution in the bigger picture of schemes in terms of the Black Lives Matter protests, systemic racism, and all that stuff. So keeping myself just with my friends and family and just talking and being busy online has kept me a bit positive. Because if I didn't have that, I worry for people who don't have that community or like a garden. You know, me and my wife has said that. Imagine the parents who don't have a garden and their children couldn't go out. They've alleviated the laws a little bit now, but before, when we was on proper lockdown, you was only allowed out once. I'm like, if you live on the 11th floor, man, what are you gonna do? So I just count myself blessed, to be honest, to be in that situation. Really, really blessed.
Yeah. Is it me, Nick? Yeah.
Yep.
I think you touched on everything. Like I think we wanted to chat with, but I wonder, maybe if you could speak more to the experience around what maybe narratives or kind of social constructs you had to fight against as being a stay-at-home father who educates children at home. I'm like, you're battling two things. You're battling like the not norm of stay-at-home dads, but also schooling from educating from home, which I think is like, for me, so important and so valuable, but it's not seen as valuable in society. So maybe can you talk a bit about what brought you to those kind of like purposes or beings or positions?
To be honest, it is a book I read years ago. I have it here actually. It's called the book Education, and it's written by a woman called Ellen G. White, very, very prolific writer, and she's one of the founders of the church that I belong to, the Seventh Adventist Church. And I read that years before I was even married, even before I was even going out with my wife now, Janine. And it just completely just changed my whole perspective of what education was. That word education was synonymous with school, academics, get a career and a job. That's what most of us all believe growing up, because you're in the system. So why are you going to think anything different when you're part of a system, and then that's what everybody around you is saying? You know, what college are you going to go to, blah. So when I read this, and she started talking about character, morals, and then there's a whole range of things, I started to sit down and think, so that word education is more than just academics. It's about our being, the choices I'm making. She even goes into practical education, which again is another discussion, but there's a lot of schools of thoughts out there about is our system even relevant, because does it teach us to even be practical and make certain decisions? Like a little simple one I always use just to make a point. I says, when youth go to university, a lot of them can't cook. A lot of people can't cook. And that has its challenges and problems because you can't cook. But in my household, my dad was the cook as well. All my uncles can cook, because from the Caribbean, men cooking is not a what do we call it? It's not seen as demeaning to men. You know, it's seen as oh yeah, man, you can't cook, right? You know, I remember at church where you had elders bringing in cakes And it was a rite of passage that they brought in the cakes. And so I grew up seeing men bringing cakes, baking. It was never seen as, oh, it's a woman's thing, or, oh, I'm not going to bake. But in other instances and other cultures, it's seen as baking. That's sissy, you know? And so it just radically changed my whole perspective. So it convicted me so hard. I said, you know what? If I have children one day, I'm going to home educate them. Because for me personally, that's the best thing for them. I want to be their teacher, because a simple antidote, if they fall down on the ground, the teacher's there to help them shape their decisions or how they should react to that situation. So not fall down on the ground. If they see a friend fall down, now, whoever's around them, they construct their world right in that moment. Do you laugh? Do you cry? Do you run away? What do you do? Now, I said to myself, I want to be there to construct his frame or her frame of what she should do. I want to be able, because I believe what the principles I'm living by are important for them to be a productive person in society. It shouldn't be the responsibility of somebody else that I don't even know. I don't even know what your background is. And we're complex. You can't oversimplify a human being to just 60 minutes in a classroom to different topics, and I believe the moral aspect of an individual is very, very key, not just academic. So it was that book, to be honest, that made me say, you know what, let me do that.
Yeah.
Have you had any, like, over the years, have you had any people kind of, because, okay, so I was brought up certain ways, and I know you know a little bit about my story, but I was brought up with these certain ideas of what a real man is.
Right.
And, for 15 years of my life, I was in turmoil because I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't say, help me to somebody, because I was taught that a real man can sort out all his own problems. So I had to go through a process of being able to kind of discover that what I was taught when I was younger wasn't necessarily the truth.
Right.
Now, so I'm not a father. And at 49 years old, because I was always taught I was going to be a good dad. I was going to be a good dad. So I was always beating myself up because I never ended up having a family. And again, it's taken me a real, and some people, they haven't niggled at me, but they're kind of like, oh, you're not a dad, so you don't understand certain things.
Right.
And I've had to deal with it a certain way. But you, as a stay-at-home father, have you had people kind of implement their old ideas or what they think it's like to be a real man on you?
100%. 100.
What's that like?
Oh man, it's been difficult. Seriously difficult what you're doing with yourself, because I was not working at all. I was just looking after my 3 children. So I didn't even have an income.
But isn't that like actually a job too? Like, this is what's so messed up about society. Yes, that's the most important job ever.
But that's it, Melissa. Now, the thing is, that's the crazy thing, what you're saying, as it rolls off your lips so easily, but it's such a deep idea that needs to be just rediscovered. Because I don't believe it's new. I believe we've been taught wrong. And unfortunately, this is my theory, being from a religious background, Christian background, we had it wrong the worst. Because when you put God on the back of something, it gives it more legitimacy. Do you see? And that can produce extreme thinking and something that I called false guilt, fake guilt, where you have an idea that's not even a good idea, but you think is a good idea. So now you're feeling guilty for not doing this thing, but this thing is a false idea. And that's huge within I'm going to generalize now, but in the Christian community, because like, well, here's this text over there that says, you're supposed to be a man and the man is the head of the household. And then you're like, so it's double whammy where even if you didn't have a religious background, but you're taught that perspective of what a man is. But then on top of that, someone is saying it's God's will. You're like, oh my days. You just got double load. And then you've got divine guilt on top of you. So,
you got the ultimate judger telling you that
this is it. So trying to travel through that as a young man who's sincere, have 3 children. I'll be honest, and this is funny, I can be honest, to say this online with the 2 of you, it's taken me this long, but for I don't know how many years, it was just a struggle feeling low self-worth to the point where I would say now I was depressed for years and didn't even realize it. And the only thing that kept my sanity, thank God, was the fact that I would get asked to speak. And so, because I'll get asked to speak, your kind of mind has to divert to, okay, now I need to inspire people. So let me write something. And it would be kind of like a break for me to focus on others and to help them and to inspire them. But as soon as I came out of that break, it's like you could compare it to like a drug in a sense. So it keeps you for one moment, right? And then once you're out of that environment, I've preached and it was excited. Wow, man, that was so good, man. Wow. But then inside, I still ain't got the answer to what I'm going through. So then I'm going home, at home, my 3 children, or at first it was just Isabel. And you're like, and then these thoughts, you're not this, you're not that, you ain't bringing no income in. So every week I'm getting asked the question I want to hide from. What are you doing with yourself? Right. Literally, I would plan my trajectory to try and avoid certain people who's going to ask me that question, because it's like, for me, it was a reminder of what I'm not doing instead of an affirmation that, man, you know what you're doing is really, really good, Michael. Like, to be able to make that decision as a man, that is really, really good. But there were people here and there, like the younger generation saw that as inspirational. Like, young would be like, Mike, you're at home full time. And certain younger ladies, I mean, in their 20s and early 30s, the new generation now ask me, what made you do that? And so I did have those moments where it made me realize you have got something good here going. And then as the children are getting older, my oldest is 11, Solomon is 10, Aisha is 8, seeing our relationship, and when people see how close we are, I came to a point where I was like, yeah, this has been a journey. I'm glad. I have no regrets now. You know, at first it was difficult, very, very hard. So yeah, it's not something that people would assume, quick example, people would assume that I was babysitting. So I'll go to the shop. So during the day when everyone's supposed to be at school, they're with me and the cashier will be like, oh, you babysitting? I'm like, no. And I didn't get it at first. So I'd respond by saying, no. They're my children. Because they thought I was a babysitter. But later on, I told my wife, and she said, no, people think that the man, he just has the children part-time. So it's like your babysitting, it's the woman's job. I was like, oh, is that why they keep asking me? I was like, yeah. She goes, it's so rare. And so I started to change my response to be intentional and saying, no, I look after them full time. Yeah. And then it will start a conversation. Like, oh, wow, why? And yeah, so it was very, very difficult to kind of get my head around the stereotypes and what has brought my view of what a real man's supposed to be. Very hard.
What was the other little bits of language? Sorry, Mel. What was the other bits of language that people used towards you? Like, what are you doing with your life? And, you know, are you babysitting? What were the other kind of like harmful languages that people would say to be inquisitive?
I want to add it to that question because that was similar to mine. What would you have or encourage people to ask now instead of what do you do? Is there another question you would hope that people could ask? So you have 2 questions.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I never thought about it. But if I would say, how are you doing? What are some of your dreams and aspirations instead of what are you doing with yourself? Because it's loaded. And really what we're asking is, do you have a job? That's really what we're asking. The people I grew up with, you know, our church predominantly Caribbean, predominantly Black folk, and academics is a big thing. Go to university, and I'm sure that's the same for most people, right? So what are you doing with yourself? And it's coming from a good place. Don't get me wrong. It's coming from a good place, but that's not the only measure, and that's not the only route to success. Some people want to stay at home and have children. Some people want to start their own business. Some people just want to travel the world and explore. Some people, there's so many different things people want to do. So it kind of automatically boxes you in. What are you doing with yourself? And when I answer, oh, I look after my children full time. Rarely did I get, wow, that's amazing. It was, so your reaction kind of reinforced what I was feeling internally. Do you see? You didn't get excited. You didn't even continue the conversation. Like you didn't have anything to say. And I'm like, but then what annoyed me the most, that if my children was to go astray in life for whatever reason, like crime or whatever, right? Who would get the blame? I would. The parents always I would get the blame. Oh, you wasn't black. But then And then this is a crazy thing, but then when people see their character and their personality, they get the praise. Oh, your children are just wonderful. Like, wow, they're so, and I'm intentional to say, I always say to you, I said, when people say that, no, I'm not letting them get away with that. I says, this is taking some hard work, a lot of naughty steps, a lot of consistency, because for the first 10 years, I'm implementing these principles, a lot of patience, a lot of this. Of course, I've done a lot of mistakes, of course, but I can confidently say there's a lot of things I learned from Super Nanny. I'm sure she had a show in America as well, because she started off over here. An English lady used to go into parents' homes and teach them to look after their kids. I took some of those things on board because, again, another conversation was discipline in the Caribbean culture. It's not good. The smacking, belts, and all that stuff. I wanted to go away from that. So again, that was another hard thing. That's a bit of a different discussion, but yeah, like, how are you doing, Mike? You know, what kind of dream aspirations do you have instead of what are you doing with yourself? You know, it kind of boxes you in. And yeah, I don't ask people that myself, what you doing with yourself. I ask them other questions because I know that some people are in a place where they don't know what to do, you know? And yeah, that's a possible way they could ask me, I should say.
I think you know, as we're speaking about this subject and how people are so quick to judge, you know, I think that because of the cultural and ideological system that we've all been brought up with, if we don't conform to it and you're sitting out in it and then someone's not conforming to it, it's so easy to judge it because they think it's wrong, you know. And this is where I think that conversation, compassion of like what we learned in back then, or even, you know, whatever, isn't necessarily the truth. And to come into situations where we're not so judgmental. Has it taught you a lot about judgment when you get judged?
Oh, that's the best teacher, to be honest. I knew the theory before, you know, you say, you know, don't judge this, you be judged. So, you know, you knew the theory, but until I was walking in those people's shoes. So now I'm in the shoes of the stereotypical mom at home. Now I'm in her shoes. So and then now I'm starting thinking ways I never would have thought. Just for example, the designs of our churches. There's no mother's room in our particular churches. Where's the mother's room for so she can listen to the sermon? When new churches are built, that they didn't consider, oh, we need a mother's room. When I was growing up, there were many mother's rooms, and then now I'm walking around and now I'm seeing the building through the lens of the mother. Nowhere to feed the child, nowhere to, if the child is crying, they have to step out and they're seen as, oh, your child is crying. Now I'm in that shoes. So now I'm starting to think different and I'm realizing, man, we've got a lot of things wrong among us. This is not good. We don't make women feel like they're doing a good job. And something, for example, my wife picked up was, if I'm carrying my child when they were babies, you get an old lady go, oh, Michael, let me help you, and come up to me. Not the woman. No. She can't handle the child. The child's doing somersaults in her hand. You know when you're trying to hold the baby and then they talk their body like this, and they like a ball. And you're thinking, stay still, right? I'll get help. My wife never got that help. She just gets the look. You know, you just get that little. And then I started to realize, man, I was building more empathy with the lady. So it'll be funny because I'll be with the child, Isabel Simon, with the bottle in if there was a mother's room or a room that just got turned into a mother's room. And then now I'm feeding and it's just with women. And then as they start to, air their grievances, I'm getting involved. I got one of them like, in it, man, what's this? So I'm now building because I'm in their shoes, I'm in the situation. So yeah, the judgment thing, the preconceived ideas, I learned a lot that among us as a people, as Christians, church I go to, there's a lot of traditional ideas that, again, it may come from a good place, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have ramifications. And that's how I explain to people. I says, look, let's stop riding this horse, but my motive is good. Understand, interpretation is the key. And if somebody feels genuinely offended or misunderstood, we have to take that on board. Because these traditional ideas, they are problematic. They don't, for me, truth should inspire, not bring down, not crush somebody. And so if an idea is making someone feel like they're less of, then we need to revisit that idea. we need to revisit that. And so, yeah, definitely happened a lot. Definitely.
It's so interesting too. It's the way, like you mentioned, the way people respond to the difference of what mothering looks like versus what fathering looks like. And we hear a lot about mothering, especially for like women who choose not to have children. There's different ways we can mother, and there's different ways men can mother, like nature, pets, family members. It's like this energy almost. Right, but we don't hear a lot about what the energy of fathering. Yeah. And so I want to ask you about that, but I went on a tangent in my own head, because what I wanted to also say was, I experienced this a lot growing up too, where when a dad had a baby, it was, or changed the diaper, because my dad basically changed my diaper, comb my hair, braid my hair, all the things. Right. And he was seen as like an exception to the rule. Yes. Oh, look at this man. And I remember my mom and my aunt being like, he's the father. Like, this is bare minimum work. Like, he was part of this. But it's like this ingrained idea that when a man, the father, does this, it's like this, oh my goodness, we raised him up to this platform of like it seems like there's always this idea in society now too of like othering. Right. With race relations, with gender, it's like we have to other people to feel better about our own insecurities. And it's just, you know, I'm annoyed with it. I think a lot of us are annoyed with it. But so maybe if you can speak to what your idea of fathering might be, and for those who maybe don't have children, and how we can work in relation to mothering, parenting, guardianship, whatever.
Oh, wow. All these questions are so deep.
And I didn't even finish my coffee.
For me, fathering is, let me not put it in a box of home education or not home educating, but let me share principles and ideas. And then, so hopefully listeners will be like, okay, how do I apply that in my situation? Because when people ask me questions on homeschooling, I don't try to give them a blueprint, a curriculum, which is what people want to know. Like, what books should I get? I said, no. That's not what you really are. You need to understand first, what is your goal? And there are different ways of getting there by following certain principles. So in terms of fathering, I would say being intentionally, when I say intentionally, literally being intentionally there for your child and not assuming you know what you're doing. So what do I mean? Okay, so it's very easy to slip into a routine. So the child wakes up and let's use the example. The child, typical, goes to school, comes home, you say, how was your day? Got homework to do? Yeah, you might, you know, and children will not tell you, is what I've realized. They won't tell you when something is wrong. Very unless it's really, really, and even then, as much as you think you're doing good, my fear is something may be happening in your mind that I'm not aware of. And that's happened with my children. I've seen a little, you know, little facial expression, and I could have easily passed by, or my last one, Aisha, she's the most fierce and the most bold. So she will bother me, Daddy, can we play now? Like, she demands attention. She doesn't ask, can we, Daddy, you said, Daddy, today, come on, Daddy, when are you going to come off your computer, Daddy? The other two don't do that. Now, the assumption is now they're okay. So when I say being intentional, it means literally sitting there and going, what can I do that I'm not doing? What possibly can I say? Not assuming that just because there's no fire, that everything's all right. And I believe a lot of parents are doing that the best of their ability, thinking everything's okay. Child goes to school, comes home, because they haven't come home with bruises, they're not crying, they think, oh, my child is all right. And that's why parents get shocked when you grow up and you're a teenager and you now have a voice, you say, Dad, you didn't do this. And your dad's looking like, yeah, but what? I didn't do anything wrong. You're like, no, it's not about wrong and right. There were certain things that I tried to communicate to you. You just missed the signs. You missed it. And it's hard for a parent to hear that when they were doing their best. And that's the other aspect. And because I'm still a son, my parents still alive, I've been able to see the both worlds in that communication. Sometimes when we have programs in church, it can get a bit heated when we talk about certain of these issues. The youth are expressing an idea, the adults are then expressing their idea, and then there's like this clash of war. No, you're wrong, you're right. And sometimes I stand up and I say, look, I can hear what you're saying because I'm a child, I've been there, back in what you're saying, because I'm a parent. And so being very, very intentional and not assuming just because there's no fires, everything's okay. Ask them, take them out, go beyond the standard. Wherever you think the standard is, create a higher one, whatever that may be for you. So if you don't go out on a Sunday, go out on a Sunday. If you don't play computer games in them, then play computer games. If you haven't been to a restaurant, then do that. Like, just go beyond. Don't go to the norm, because I guarantee you as children, there's so much things happening when they go out, things said, they're forming their feelings and opinions. You need to be there to see how they're communicating and how they're developing their thought process about certain things, because they won't tell you. The child will just be like, I don't want to bother my parents.
Right.
And a lot of the times what I found anyway with children. So yeah, I don't want to talk too much, so I'm kind of keeping it short to leave you if you get any questions.
I'm interested to know that it's obviously that you're learning an awful lot and you're collecting a lot of knowledge and wisdom over raising children. But what I'd like to know is, guys, how do you find that? So that moment of trusting instinct, where you listen to that kind of thing of, oh, that's when I should have asked Solomon something, or that's when I should have done something with Aisha, or when it's something that's learned and kind of be parts of your routine and your behavior and stuff. How can you learn how to listen to instinct?
You have to be humble to face yourself in the mirror, because you're not pretty as you think you are. I've had to eat humble pie for morning, breakfast, and dessert, and then have to eat again. And I'm like, again, God, again, another humble pie. I had this yesterday. He's like, yeah, eat it again. Yeah. Eat it again. And I'm like, but I had this last week. I thought I was done eating humble pie. No, eat it again. So I've had to, so for example, let me just be transparent. So to make it really clear, I have a temperament that is very fiery. Now that's good when it's on the side of justice. When it's on the side, when I'm your friend, Nick, and you're getting bullied in school, I hate bullies. So that was good then. I would stand up, right? I remember my best friend telling me years ago, I don't remember this story, where my brother, we were walking him home, and then my brother went with him, and then my brother came back to get me because I went off. And then he's like, I'm your friend, Jonathan's in trouble. And it was 3 guys, and I stood up to all 3 of them. That's my personality. So it's good on the side of right, but when it's on trying to discipline your children and you're not patient, that's the beast that rages inside that. So when I say certain things, it's like, for me, the goal is love. And when I say love for my children, I don't mean just compassion and feelings. It's their state of mind. What is their state of mind when you're talking to them? What is their state of mind when you're enforcing the law in the home? Because for me, if they don't like the law, then I failed. They need to enjoy they need to see what I'm saying. It's very easy to get a child to do what you want. You're bigger, you're stronger, it's not hard. They're scared of you naturally. You're big. You tell them they're going to do it. So that's not the goal of parenting. So I have had to question, because I have that principle in my mind, anything that deviates from that. Well, look at his face. You're telling him this and he looks like he's going to cry. Do you think you've achieved your goal? Because I have the goal in my head. If you don't know what the goal of parenting is, or if the goal is just obedience, it's very hard to go into instinct, because it's like, well, they're doing the dishes. That's what your goal was. They need to do the dishes and they're not listening. It's like, well, then there's going to be a lot of strong emotions, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment in the child, because they don't see your fear. They don't see why, but the parents like, well, traditionally, look, you must listen to me. And that's not my goal. You must listen to me. My goal is you must love what I'm trying to teach you. That's harder to get someone to see love in something. That's now internal. So that takes time. That takes talking. That takes patience. That takes time. I give you an illustration. Aisha, we were doing, we booked this kind of event for children. What's it called again? Free running. That's it. So they went to a park, and really good teacher. And when the thing finished, Aisha was had to do a move where she had to jump from one pillar to another. She wasn't doing it. She was not doing it. It literally took me, I think we were there for an hour and a half. We're not exaggerating, she's standing on this pillar, and it's me saying, come on, come on. And she and I was not going to quit. I said, I'm not going to let you quit. Now, most parents would be like, 20 minutes is a long time, 5 minutes is a long time trying to inspire your child. An hour and a half? I said, because it was a hot, sunny day, we could stay out. So it wasn't raining. It was really hot. So Janine and Patrice is my brother's wife, and they were playing football. Just me and Aisha. An hour and a half, just me and Aisha. Eventually, she jumped. She missed, right? And I caught her, and she hurt her leg. But immediately, she was about to cry. And I was like, well done. I just went crazy. Well done. That's it. That's it. Now, put that into the home life. It takes time for me to convince my children. I have to sit down and talk with them. Like 5 minutes, Solomon's getting moody when he's told to clean up his room. Now, it's easy for me to go and do it. And don't argue. And I've done that before. And he goes and does it. But I see him come downstairs, and something inside of me, because I've put that as my standard up here, says, right, come on, man. You committed to that standard. You've gone away from that tradition of just telling them what to do. You want them to love, because it's a state of mind when they leave the home. Because let me give you a picture. I rather have children who one day, I have certain standards, and I'm going to be quite frank. I don't want my children smoking, drinking alcohol, and all these and things like that, right? But I rather, and I've told people this, and I've preached it many times, I'd rather one day Solomon comes to me and says, Dad, I'm going out with my friends, and there's going to be some alcohol, and I'm going to drink it. Then he sneaks out the back window. Because something is going to go wrong in life, and I need to be the first protocol. I'm not expecting perfection, and I don't want perfection. And when I've said that to people in the Christian context, they're like, what? I'm like, no, I understand what I'm saying. What I want is relationship. That's what I want. Because if I think that they're not going to make mistakes, I'm kidding myself. I'm waiting. Now, obviously, we don't want them making certain mistakes. Of course, we want them. I don't want him committing crime. I want him, at least be a good citizen of society. But just generally, I just want them to trust me. I want them to say, I can go to my dad for anything. So that's what I have in my mind every single day. So anything that I do that I think is not going to help bridge that confidence in their father, that's kind of like my barometer to say, nah, you were too harsh, you were too this, you're too quick to speak, blah, blah, blah. Because that's what I'm trying to do. It just kills me where I have vivid memories where I made mistakes according to what we was told not to do. And I was scared. That was Melissa and Nick, that was far more painful than the mistake. Just feeling alone that you can't even go to your parents. Now, look, my parents are lovely people and they love me. I know that. But the reality is when I made the mistake, that was now the true test of my view of my parents in that situation. I'm not going to put it on them, but the truth is when I made a particular mistake, I was like, I can't tell nobody. And it was hell. And so I'm thinking about that for my children. I'm like, I don't care what you're going to do. I remember I was in a barbershop getting a haircut, and we had this discussion. And one guy was like, if I find out my son is gay, that's it, cutting him off. And I used that as an opportunity. I said, bro, well, then you don't understand what love is. He's like, no. I said, no. I said, no. I said, that's not love. That's not love. I said, I would never do that. I said, because love does not change. It's not dependent on what my child is going to do for me or give me. I says, I have that unconditional. That's what unconditional love means. And he was like, no, but how can you say that? How can you say that? I was like, well, and then I had to go into my what I'll call my preaching mode. I had to, because I says, well, that's where I get the concept from, because that's how God treated me. So how can I do it to anybody else? It's not dependent upon what one day my son says, and guys said, yeah, you still my son, I'm still going to love you. Still going to treat you the same. I says, that does not change. I says, you can't cut off your son. I says, you can't just, I says, because that means your love is based on conditions. And I says, when a child feels that there's conditions to you loving them, I says, that's hell for them. It's hell. I said, people want to just feel that no matter, look, okay, we might not agree, but I love you. And I'm not saying it, I'm showing it. You know, one day my son, if he gets into a police station and they caught him stealing, I don't want social services, or he's thinking about uncle, he's thinking about Andrew, he's thinking about even my brother. I want him to go, I'm going to call my dad. I'm going to call my dad. And if that happens one day, then I know, you know what, thank God, I've done a good job because I'm here. We're going to work through this together. And that's what I'm trying to build, because it's a bad world out there. And I just want them to feel protected. I want my females. I got 2 daughters who are beautiful. It's like a curse. It's like, no, Lord. Oh, man. Like Isabel. I got a little running joke with my eldest, right? And I keep saying to Isabel, yeah, stop growing. And she, you know, we keep laughing because she's tall now. She's about up to my shoulder, right? Long black hair. And I'm like, Isabel, stop growing. You're not listening to daddy. Stop it. Be small. Because now the father in me and the man in me is like, oh, one day guys are gonna start looking, and it's the reality of life. And so I just know that if they get into a relationship, they say, Daddy, I need advice. I want that. I so want that. Yeah, they're gonna go to their mom, but I want them to come to me. And if anything, you know, they're not sure about something, I don't want to think, oh, I can't talk daddy because daddy's judgmental, daddy's this, daddy's gonna just preach to me, blah. I want to create an environment that they just feel safe. And that kind of helps me with the instinct to go, yeah, that wasn't right, because I've already got a standard in my own mind of what I'm personally trying to achieve. Hope that kind of makes sense.
No, that was awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think we could talk for another 10 minutes. I do have a question, a question embedded in what you were saying, or maybe an observation is, I think sometimes, basically what I'm understanding is that parenting and being a guardian for any kind of creature requires our own reflection and our own awareness. Yes. And I think that's the piece that we miss in parenting school or societies. Like, how are you expected to raise this beauty with love if you don't even know what that looks like or feels like for you?
That's it.
Yeah. I'm wondering, like, I know for me, in my late 20s, because I'm in my late 30s now, but in my late 20s, I had this moment where I realized my parents were human. And that moment changed my whole life.
Yes. That's a hard truth, Melissa. That's so hard. Yeah. I'm glad.
Driving the car. I'm like, wait, you actually don't know what you're doing. You've just been lying this whole time.
That's right.
Picking this stuff up every day. And for me, that was like a whirlwind of realization that kind of got some deep needed healing for me to happen. So, I mean, I guess I was going to say, does that make sense to you? But it seems like your reaction, like, can you speak to that a bit? And also, like, I'm wondering if your children, when Isabel's like a bit older and she's like, my dad's a human and this is the human he is, what do you want her to have? Like, what do you want that thought to be?
Hopefully they already seen that already, because I joke with them all the time, and that's something, because my personality is not really a jovial person. I'm more naturally just more serious, and that's just how my person. And I've learned to be more jovial because of my children, because I found when I'm disciplining them, I was too harsh. When I made it funny, they took on what I said, made them feel better. Because children don't think, they're not logical. It's a pure emotion. If you make them feel good, you're their best friend. So, to answer your question, I say to them already, that's why daddy needs God, children. That's why daddy needs God. And they laugh. You know, I say, I'm open with them. You know, my brother's even more open with it, because he does, when he comes here to stay, or when before lockdown and what have you, he would do children's story with them. We do a thing where we do worship, but our worship is just a character building story, sometimes from the Bible, sometimes from enough books we got children, which are just true stories. But most of the time it's Jonathan's real stories of us growing up, and they love it. They'll come back and be like, Daddy, you did this? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, Daddy, you beat up that guy? Yeah. Daddy used to steal? Yeah. And then I joke and I said, that's why I need Jesus. I said, that's why I'm teaching you. So I'm very transparent with them to let them know that already they know Daddy's human already. And there's one thing that came to my mind that I said I was going to do with my children if I was to have them, is say sorry. That is, you ask my wife, that is that's the 11th commandment for me. Like that's what, and it's hard, but I do it religious. I do it because I'm like, I don't want to feel afraid that I'm trying to keep this fake image. Like, what image are you trying to keep? Perfection? No. Love, understanding. And if they see you're trying as hard as it is, your children are seeing you fall and you're going to pretend you never tripped. It's like we're running a race and I trip and I get up and go, no, it weren't me. Is that, but that's what we're doing in an allegory kind of sense. You know, I scream and then I don't say nothing. I let him believe that that is okay. These two sisters are watching. Oh, is that okay? If I get upset with their mom, oh, is that how you treat women, Solomon? No. I have to go to him and say, look, sorry, you know, today, boy, that had a bad day, you know, I shouldn't have done that. And I'm just straight with him. Somehow I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. And sometimes I have to say to the whole family, I'm sorry. When we get together in the evening and we're reading a little word before we go to bed, that's confession time. That's talking time. I have to be real. So hopefully they won't get too much of a shock, right? Where it's like, oh, daddy was human, because I'm trying to bring that into their sphere of education right now. In terms of the bombshell, when I realized that my dad's not Superman, yeah, like yourself, it's like for a while, and it's a very dangerous time, because you can go to one or two extremes. You can get angry and resentful, and I'm glad you said about healing. That's excellent. But then you can go to the other extreme of then rationalizing that what happened to you made sense, or it's the right way. So then you now take that trauma, rationalize that. That wasn't trauma, it wasn't because of what they said or did. And then now you put that into now the next generation. And there was a question, a part of one of your questions I forgot to answer. In terms of, let's say, men who don't have children, they can be very good fathers. I've got uncles who've been there for me in times when I needed them. Like my brother, he's doing that to my children. So if I was to pass, God forbid, one day, I know for a fact I got no worries. My brother would, like I said this to Janine, my wife, I said, you know, John would adopt all of them. She's like, yeah, no. Right, there's just no worries. And I would do the same for him. Right, all the three of you come in. Do you see? And if you know, if Patrice, she was still around, I know I'll be like, Patrice, you tired? They just send them all to my house. Just send them all to my house. So yeah, I'm trying to be honest. And that was a hard thing to deal with when I realized, yeah, my parents are not perfect. They made loads of mistakes. And it was a lot of resentment for a while. I tell a story, being transparent. My father, about 7-8 years ago, had a stroke. And you would think the reaction is, oh man, my dad had a stroke, man, bro. I was vexed. I was angry. And the reason why I was angry, because I felt, well, you're not being healthy. It's your fault. But that wasn't the real reason. The real reason was, you're leaving me behind. There was unresolved things that I hadn't said to him or whatnot. And so now I'm getting angry that you're going to leave me behind. And I remember driving down the motorway, you know, just being vexed, saying, Ginny, watch when I see him. And that's my personality. You think to yourself, where's the compassion? I'm just telling it as it is. That's how angry I was. Driving on the motorway, there's not a thread of compassion, nothing. When I see him watching me, tell him, why don't you be healthier? Why don't you get yourself fixed up? Blah, 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 blah. When I got to the hospital, I thank God I wasn't as bad as I thought I was. I'm sitting there, not a word's coming out of my mouth. I didn't say one thing. I couldn't, because the reality of the situation was staring me right in the face. And I'm thinking, I could have lost my dad. Could have lost my dad. So I'm sitting there. And I remember we have to go. So I haven't said a word. Literally, I'm just sitting there, just, you know, smiling here and there, not really saying anything. Haven't spoken to him. And then when we had to leave, I just went to him and I just broke down crying and hugged him. And in there, I said, Daddy, I love you so, so much. I didn't say sorry. It wasn't time for me to be specific in terms of what my heart was saying. But I just said, what a bigot I'm being, man. Mike, come on, man. This is your dad. This is your daddy. He was trying. And then God started to put in my mind all of the good times, all of the things he did do, all of the positives, all the times he was there, all the times he did protect you, all the times he, you know, where he was intentional. And then to be understanding, because Mike, come on, don't get on your high horse. Look at the mistakes you've made in a short time. You've had your children. Come on. I was like, you know what? Yeah, it's true, God. You know, yeah, it's true. You know, come like he's on his deathbed. Do you think he wants to be there? Do you think he planned it? If we could write our own script, do you think any of us would get the book and say, yeah, you know, when I'm there, I'm going to do this to my children? You're going to write a really perfect novel that ends well. No one's going to write their own death sentence. Nobody. And so that was hard, but I'm grateful for that situation because it broke my hard head, man. I needed that humbling, that experience to be understanding to my own flesh, my own dad. You know, yeah, it is a hard thing to discover that your parents are not perfect. Yeah.
And that our hearts break.
So
no, it's all good. It's all good. You know, like our subject around this talk and going into the month of July and the workshops that Mel is going to be doing is about remembering and recentering.
Okay.
And it was kind of a conversation that me and Mel had about remembering what it was like when lockdown happened, where people were like, oh my God, I'm going to start looking inwards, and this is some time for me to kind of heal and to look at my life and to kind of just look at our situation. Do I need to be in the rat race? Do I need to be on the tube all the time? Do I need to be? And it's kind of like, it was beautiful, but then now we're coming out of it, and it's like people are like almost trying to fight to get to the front of the queue, fighting to get back to work. It's almost like, how do we remember that feeling in the first few weeks of lockdown where we were actually, oh, this is some time that the earth, the universe has given us. And then kind of remembering that and staying centered around that, so that once this lockdown eases, we go through it in the months and the years to come, and our relationships form and bond and move forward. You know, how can we remember, recenter? And then also, I'll just leave you this with the conversation that we've had over the last almost hour, is that you talk about love. And I see from you that love is the truth. And that when we're not in so much fear and we have connection and family, we can tell the truth. You know, and I think that for me, for so long, I had no ability to tell the truth because I was so scared. You know, but if you kind of keep that community and connection around you where you're not so fearful, the truth is easy, and it makes love easy. So I know that's kind of a long conversation as we wrap things up, but kind of go about remembering and recentering and love. So so how going through into the next few months, like how would you remember and stay recentered around what's been going on over the last couple of months?
Just to stay in touch with my purpose and the people around me. It's really difficult to not be self-centered if it doesn't involve others. If your goals doesn't involve others, it doesn't make you a bad person, but you're naturally going to be self-centered. You're just naturally going to go into, because every goal is about you. But then when you remember, everyone has family, everyone is connected to family, friends, and it's great to have a good time. It's great to go out. It's great to talk. It's great to go to, you know, you might go to a club, you might go to a restaurant. It's great to do all those things. But life throws everybody an uppercut sooner or later. And that's what I've learned. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter our background. Doesn't matter our faith. No, it doesn't matter. Mike Tyson is coming. And he's coming hard with no mercy. And that's what I've realized, because I'm 39 now. So as I'm talking to different people, I'm sitting and listening to their life thinking, because we used to, before lockdown, me and my bro used to go into the prisons once a month. And we only have 10 minutes. And in that 10-minute little spot, it changed my life every month doing that. It literally just radically just changed my life, what I had as a gift. It just completely, like, no one would disagree that, isn't that the worst place, quote unquote, in society? That people have given up on them. But then to see them respond positive, not just, oh, that was great, but emotionally, tears, testimonies, my life has changed. I've given up this, I've given up these addictions and this. And I'm sitting there asking myself, I thought it was clear what my purpose was, because, I believe in God and all that stuff. Then I'm sitting there going, what is then my purpose now? And it's so, you know, people, who can I help? Who can I be of some assistance to? And we don't need to look far. We don't need to look next door, you know, across America. My own children, and here's the thing, for a long time I said, if I just do this well, my children, if I just look after my children, my wife, focus on my marriage, that alone, because that's 3 people who are now going to have to leave my home one day, and they're going to have influence, whether good or bad, in society. And so we have to, anybody listening to this, what helps give some kind of purpose and happiness, doesn't matter who you are, is helping somebody. Why do superstars who have millions and millions and millions and millions, most always have a charitable edge to them? You would be surprised that it's not, you know, putting the media out there because they're not trying to show off. But your Brad Pitts, you know, went to what was it, New Orleans, the state that got flooded out. I think it was New Orleans. But I remember seeing that, thinking, oh, and I, over the years I've seen different stars. They've got their little charitable thing on the side. I said, it's because as much as what they do is great and entertainment or whatever, there's something about humans and how I believe we've been created to there's the truest satisfaction is helping somebody else, seeing, and it's because it's not money, it's not fame, it's seeing somebody change as a result of something I've done. And a small act of kindness that does a ripple effect that causes a tsunami somewhere else. You couldn't measure the tsunami because you're not there to see it, but you've just done this act of kindness. Like my brother illustrates this all the time to me. And when we was on the line, he said that the reason why he's so grateful to me all the time, because when I was speaking to him about my faith, he was in a position where he was going to commit suicide. And then I remember him saying one day that he wouldn't even have children. He wouldn't have a wife because he wouldn't be here. So he said, and I said that to my youngest daughter. I said, Aisha, your niece and nephews is here because of God, because your uncle would have taken his life, but look at this blessing. And I was illustrating how if it wasn't for certain things I've done, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing this, and then I wouldn't have met your mom and all these connections. I says, so we have to be really grateful for what we have, this community we have around us, this family and this. So we have to make the decision to be like, it's not in serving ourselves. It's just not. It's the most beautiful thing to, and that's difficult. It's easy as it sounds, you know, because not all families get along. I don't know which family does get along and is perfectly happy together. But as we're patient with one another, as we try to look past the grievances we've had and just be there, sooner or later, family members who might have gotten your nerves, said something that wasn't, or done something really bad, you might go, man, how come they're still kind of like talking to me properly? How come they're still, you know, and that's the hope. And for me, it's just a community, just trying to, I would be very, 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 very depressed if I didn't have others around me to just take my focus off myself. I'll be honest. I would be, you know, like the blessing of my children is like on Father's Day, waking me up, happy Father's Day. Like it's just such a blessing to just have them in the home in this crazy time. I can't go out. We're laughing, we're joking. You know, I got a little toy gun for Solomon and little Nerf gun, like pap, 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 and they're running around the house scared. You know, we have a little routine in our household where at night it's called the funny way. Tuck us in the funny way. Now it was Aisha who coined it, and I don't know why she called it that. I think it's because I make them laugh. So yesterday, Daddy, can you tuck me in the funny way? Those little things just, it's better than preaching a sermon. It's better than going into the prisons. It's better than going out on the streets and handing out leaflets. It's better than traveling to Ken in the Philippines. I've been all these places. Seeing my children just be happy and go, love you, Daddy, kiss. I'm like, yeah, this is what it's about. So all of us can in some way make someone's life a little bit brighter. It's a little bit brighter. And that does something to you inside. You know, sometimes a tear might run down. You might hide and be like, no, it's okay. No, it's just the wind. It's just some dust, You know, that'll be my advice.
You make my life a little bit brighter, and I'm grateful that you're in it. So
honor,
you know,
it's an honor.
Thanks for joining us. Mel, do you want to say thank you?
Yes, thank you so much. I was gonna make a joke, but no. Thank you. And I
make the joke. You got to do it now. You got to make the joke.
The time has passed, and it wasn't even enough. But I think I would love to have you on again and talk more about education, because I think that's a conversation that, with this whole perhaps cultural shift happening, is what we need to really talk about. Hopefully. So, but thank you. I mean, the wisdom and truth, and like, I mean, I'm walking away with remembering the importance of intention and humility aside from love, right? Like, these are the things we walk with, and I appreciate your remembering, or allowing me to remember that today. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. I would love to come on and talk about education. Nick, the way we've just met random, I'm glad I spoke to you now, you know, because to continue this conversation, because I want to get outside of my circle, my church circle. Yeah. And that's why I'm so grateful for these conversations. And when I went to a protest and spoke, it's got me in connection with, because I just want to be of service to somebody. I want to see reality for what it is. Do you see what I mean? And I want my children to see that. It's not about going to one building once a week. We've got something we can help. And that's why I'm really, really grateful for these kind of conversations. So if it can happen, let's do it.
We'll be doing more of these, and I know with Hood Lessons, with Free Tribe, with yourself, there's a lot of things coming up. So you know, we'll work on all of that. I'm also really looking forward to some kind of picnic or barbecue with Andrew and Faith and you. That's gonna happen.
Yes,
so,
I've been saying that to my wife. I said we need to have a party because we've been on lockdown. We need to have a massive like everybody be like, let's come down.
We'll just make a big social bubble. So we're social bubbling together. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you. What's on at Elephant Castle Facebook page. Don't forget this Thursday at 2 p.m. Mel and I are going to be doing, I think it's 3-part workshops over July on remembering and recentering, 2 p.m. So join us then. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.